Few places in the world are graced with the natural abundance found here in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be telling you of a place not far from here that will celebrate this rich natural legacy. It's called the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Its staff hopes it will help educate and make others more environmentally aware of nature's delicate cycle. This powerful, life-giving Pacific Ocean, for example, is only part of the story. Nature's course begins not with a surge of dramatic crashing waves, but with the journey of one single raindrop on its way to the raging sea. A raindrop falls in a lush Oregon coastal forest. It trickles into a woodland stream, enriching it for the diverse wildlife that depend on this steady water supply. The stream may empty into a coastal river, a haven for species uniquely dependent on fresh water. Or it may flow into a pond, lake, or slough, helping to form habitats for other wild creatures. As the fresh Northwest river water mixes with the salty tide, coastal wetlands and estuaries form. The blending of salt and fresh water create food supplies that support a diverse animal community. Nearby, seabirds feed off mudflats, uncovered as the ocean tide ebbs and then is replenished later with seawater and nutrients. Finally, the water makes its way through gentle tidal channels, linking marshes, wetlands, and mudflats to the vast Pacific Ocean. The seawater supports animals large and small, from those clinging to the rocky shore to those swimming in the ocean depths. Nature's cycle begins again as mist turns to rain in the forests of the Oregon coast, each drop of water supporting the natural abundance that is the Pacific Northwest. This journey a drop of water takes on its way to the sea is traced throughout the exhibits at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Now, it took a broad partnership of public, private, and corporate support to build the aquarium, and its supporters believe it will be a world-class facility. But you can judge that for yourself as we give you an exclusive look at your Oregon Coast Aquarium. Coming up, how the Oregon Coast Aquarium came to be located in Newport, and later, a tour inside, complete with a look at the largest open-air display of seabirds in North America. Like clockwork, the Pacific Ocean washes over these Oregon shores. To the naked eye, it appears to be just a mingling of common seawater and sand. But this is really the pulse of an intricate marine environment, each wave bringing with it life-giving nutrients that help nourish an abundant array of sea animals. Hundreds of species of fish, birds, and marine life depend on the water to support their delicate ecosystems. Networks kept alive by the ocean and its neighboring coastal streams, bogs, and estuaries. Some of the animals native to the northwest portion of the coast thrive here like nowhere else on Earth, gliding deep under ocean waves, nesting high in cliff tops, or clinging to the sides of shallow tide pools. This rich environment didn't go unnoticed even decades ago in the days of the early Oregon pioneers. It was in the 1860s that a marine discovery was made off Yaquina Bay that would transform the quiet cove. Lush beds of native rock oysters were found, a small species sighted nowhere else but there. The find led to the development of what is now known as Newport.
That really started the town of Newport, yes, because a Captain Winnett from San Francisco came up and began shipping operations and sending oysters off across the country, and it really brought attention to the area.
Newport never drifted far from these early seafaring origins. Named for the Newport, Rhode Island resort town, the city began to flourish with industries dependent upon the sea. Tourism, logging, and fishing became its economic base. The town that started by shucking oysters now put another of its marine delicacies center stage. Newport began calling itself the Dungeness crab capital of the world. In 1965, the marriage between city and sea took on a national stature with the construction of the Hatfield Marine Science Center. This Oregon State University facility became known as one of the country's top marine research centers.
But this noted center couldn't rescue the area from the economic problems at the time. Not only had the volatile timber industry rocked the community's economic foundation, environmental pollution was beginning to hurt the tourist trade as well. Before modern environmental controls had been put into place, Newport smelled so bad that locals joked it had become known as the town you sped through on your way to somewhere else.
Over the next decade, trying to jumpstart troubled coastal economies became a statewide challenge. But Newport City leaders decided that developing a world-class aquarium with an emphasis on education and the environment could draw people to the area year-round. It would not only be smart business, it would raise the public's awareness about environmental preservation.
At that time, aquariums were coming into their own, and what we wanted to have was something that would be truly unique, that wouldn't be one up the road 50 miles or down the road 50 miles.
Creative, technical, and biological experts from all over the country helped fashion what Oregon's aquarium would be like. Soon, architects' drawings gave way to detailed models, and the builders got their first glimpse at how the completed aquarium would look.
This is one of the viewing windows for the sea otter exhibit. It looks over the dry moat area into the swimming area and highlights the rocks, which are the backdrop. This is a viewing area that's mostly underwater to about here. There'll be about 6 to 8 sea otters in this pool. From this window, you can see them underwater from about here, swimming around in most of the pool area.
Construction began in 1990, and with each phase came attention to detail. From every soffit and drain pipe, every recreated tide pool and fiberglass simulated pier piling, to each carefully molded and painted rocky cliff, ledge, and pool, faithfully reproduced down to the tiniest barnacle and seagull dropping.
What you see here is an artist's rendering of the finished product. The first phase of the Oregon Coast Aquarium is located inside a 40,000 square foot building, and behind it as well on several acres of outdoor exhibits. What the planners didn't want to build was an aquarium like so many others in the nation that are just a series of fish tanks in an attractive setting. Instead, they're taking the $24 million they're raising and have created what they believe is an aquarium with a strong public mission. They hope it will teach both children and adults about the wonders of the marine environment.
Some 200 species of fish, birds, and marine animals now call the aquarium home.
We want the animals to feel at home and feel comfortable with their environment. we're trying to create a natural habitat as possible. You'll see that in our sandy wave machine and the rocky wave machine and the kelp forest and the deep reef tank where we have the deep ocean fish. And even in the smaller tanks, they're going to create a little environment inside that duplicates what you would find out in the ocean.
All of the animals found here are native to the Pacific Northwest. Aquarium officials see them serving as public ambassadors, living reminders of the importance of preserving the natural way of life that their nearby relatives have enjoyed for centuries. Up next, drama unfolds on tiny Middleton Island in the Gulf of Alaska as we search for seabirds native to the Pacific Northwest. And later, a front row seat inside the Oregon Coast Aquarium, where you'll experience the power of an ocean wave firsthand.
What do you think I'm holding here? Looks like plain old sand, the kind you squish between your toes when you're walking on the beach. But if you had a microscope, you could see that the spaces between the grains are actually homes to animals so small you can't see them with your naked eye. Tiny animals and bacteria graze on the microscopic algae that grows on this sand. This process is the beginning of the food chain, and it supports larger animals like those living in the tide pools behind me here at Seal Rock. Now, these people are biologists and staff members from the Oregon Coast Aquarium. They're carefully moving some of these animals to the recreated tide pools they've made for them. Now, even though all of the aquarium species are native to the Oregon coast, some of the animals actually came hundreds of miles to their new homes.
It's 8 a.m. in Anchorage, Alaska. A crew from the Oregon Coast Aquarium loads handmade supplies.
Look at that. Double strands of duct tape for extra protection.
Animal curators Peter Noah and Alan Monroe designed many of these containers and crates for 3 kinds of birds they hope to collect on this trip. Their journey will span the next 36 hours.
Has everybody got earplugs? It's gonna be noisy.
Their destination, tiny Middleton Island, about 150 miles southeast of Anchorage in the Gulf of Alaska.
This is one of the best locations we could identify where we were able to acquire 2 of the bird species that we're most interested in. And the island has an airstrip in it, which makes easy access for us. We don't have to use a boat or a helicopter to get there.
Once on the ground, the crew will be on a tight schedule.
Gosh, here we are. Are we having fun yet? I'm having fun.
They'll spend the next 2 days without sleep, caring for the birds they hope to find until all are safely back in Oregon. Remote Middleton Island. Once a busy Air Force base, it is now virtually deserted. Only bitter winds and rain are the crew's companions here. Pete and Alan make plans to set up a rudimentary base camp.
Actually, what we'd probably do is send 2 people down with first set of boxes, 2 sets of boxes, set up a lean-to. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
The inclement weather and isolation may not be ideal for people, but they are for seabirds, especially for the rhinoceros auklets and tufted puffins that live here. While several thousand pairs nest along the Oregon coast, hundreds of thousands thrive here in Alaska.
This is perfect puffin mucking weather.
The crew is looking for juvenile puffins and auklets ready to leave their nests. U.S. Fish and Wildlife biologist Brian Fadley, who is helping the aquarium crew on this trip, finds the first bird.
Here's one. Quite a plump one. You just wait right there. One down, 19 more to go.
Because the bird is used to darkness, they place it in an ordinary gym bag. This ensures the bird's safety until they can be moved to specially built shipping crates. The nests are actually burrows made by adult birds deep underground. The group's goal is to find juvenile birds just days away from leaving the nest.
You are almost ready to go, aren't you?
There are actually several advantages to collecting juvenile birds instead of adults. Probably the best reason is that it does not affect the overall breeding population for this particular area. You know, tufted puffins may have potentially 10 breeding seasons within their lifespan. Only one of those chicks is going to make it to become a fully grown reproducing adult. And so by removing chicks from the wild, we're in essence taking what can be viewed as a surplus that would not have a long lifespan, and would not in and of itself contribute to increasing the numbers of those birds in the wild.
Care is also taken to repair the seabird nests so that they can be used again.
And the roots will grow back in that dirt, and the burrow can be used again next year.
By about 2 p.m., a few dozen auklets and puffins have been collected. The crew's experience and pre-planning pay off.
This is Alan. We've got all our boxes full, ready for lunch.
As the crew regroups, Pete and Brian begin planning a late afternoon journey into the island's marsh to search for common murres.
If we go down, take a radio, there's somebody up doing the other things, they can spot more or less and see if there's birds there. And if they say that there's, it looks barren, then, we'll just blow on it back or just take a cursory look.
Can you see them through the grass at all?
Not from no, it's the grass is like this high, so it's kind of like...
Wearing homemade backpacks for carrying murres, the pair bushwhacks towards the marshland several miles away. The downhill climb is treacherous as Pete and Brian struggle to get to the land below. After the Alaskan earthquake some 25 years ago, Middleton Island actually rose up 15 feet, creating a marshland. For the murres, the topographical change poses problems.
What used to be the murre colonies were right on the seashore. Now there's probably a half mile between where the nesting colonies are and where the actual seashore is. So in this case, the birds jump off the edge of the cliff with their parents and end up in this sort of swampy, what used to be tidal flats, but now it's just a series of small interconnected bogs and ponds.
Many of the young birds get lost or stranded in the long grass before they learn to fly.
I think if we come in from that way and aim them towards this rock up in front of us here.
Knowing this, Pete and Brian stake out a pond in the middle of the marsh and are shocked at what they see. Not only are there dead birds in the tall grass, those still alive in the pond are extremely thin and malnourished. Several thin murres are rescued. They wonder what will happen to many of the rest they'll leave behind.
I can't believe how many dead there were.
I know, isn't that amazing? It's horrible.
Pete and Brian guess that many of the young birds stranded here are starving to death because the pond's food supply isn't adequate to feed all of them. The pair moves on to the next pond, rescuing several young birds stranded on a rock in the middle of the water. They carefully move the thin birds to tubes they designed to carry them safely, knowing this is only the beginning of the murres' long journey to their new homes. Back on the small plane, Pete and assistant Valerie Williams closely watch the birds, monitoring temperatures to make sure the cabin doesn't get too warm. With all their crates filled, they head back to Anchorage, showing signs of the toll the trip has taken so far. After midnight, the crew is still on the move. Alaska Airlines allows them on the tarmac to oversee loading the delicate cargo. They will travel hundreds of miles all night back to Oregon. After driving from Portland, the road-weary crew arrives by early afternoon at the Oregon Coast Aquarium in Newport. Their final task now is to transfer all of the birds to their temporary new homes. Each one is individually weighed and then placed in its own cardboard nest box to be transferred to a permanent aviary later. The crew considers the back-to-back work hours of the past 2 days worth it as they see each healthy bird settling into its new environment.
What we're really trying to do here is to develop an educational opportunity for people to learn more about these particular animals. Hopefully, to the public understand that these birds are an important part of the ecosystem that we have out here and deserve to have their percentage of it just like any other animal out there. And so it's a trade-off. They act as ambassadors for their brethren out in the wild, but we also try and give them the best possible care here at the aquarium. We've got a staff veterinarian that works with us. We have keepers that dedicate their careers to taking care of these type of animals, and they get an awful lot of special care here too.
15 different species of seabirds breed along the Oregon coast, as do hundreds of other animals. Coming up, we'll take you to the punishing habitats where tide-pooled animals confound nature and thrive. And later you'll meet 2 sea otters that survived the Exxon Valdez oil spill as we tour their new outdoor home. It's not always easy to see the animals that live in the tide pools. Some are so well camouflaged or so clever at hiding that you could miss a whole community of them. In only one tide pool, for example, dozens of different species live together. At low tide, the rocks in the tide pools steam dry, but the pools still remain and are havens for a variety of sea life. Some animals cling to the rocks or hide in cracks to keep themselves from washing away. Others bend with the waves or have hard shells to deflect wave shock.
From the air, you can see the Pacific Ocean's relentless waves closing in around the rocks. It might look like a menacing existence, but tide pool animals actually need rocks, waves, salty water, and tides. These animals can't live in a freshwater aquarium or a bathroom sink. Animal curators from the Oregon Coast Aquarium are collecting some of these animals today for their recreated tide pools.
We don't remove all the animals from one little pool of water. We'd like to keep some as brood stock to restock the pool. So we try as best we can spread out our collection in as many different locations as possible, so there's no substantial impact on any animal populations.
Most people don't even notice there are tiny fish, often called kelpfish, in many tide pools and near rocky shores. They blend into the seaweed or hide among the algae, so they are difficult to spot. When they go tide pooling, the aquarium staff always goes in pairs or teams. The areas near shore may look safe, but there's always some uncertainty when you're facing unpredictable waves.
You've got to pay attention to the waves that are out there and not get stuck out on some point where either the tide comes in or there may be a sneaker wave that comes by. And so there's a little element of I won't say danger, because we try and avoid dangerous situations. That's why we always do tide pooling in teams, so there's someone there that is in relatively close contact. And if you get wet, and it's okay. If you get swept away, that's another matter.
With the water regularly pummeling them, tide pool animals must be able to hold on tightly.
Tide pools are a very high energy type environment where waves are crashing down, and so almost all the animals there have some provisions to suck onto the rocks and hang on tightly. So we collect things like anemones, which have a gluey suction cup-like base to them, so they're able to hang onto those rocks as the waves come in and out. Animals like chitons and limpets, can develop a little suction cup in the bottom of their foot, and they're able to withstand, those waves that come in. And the same thing goes for the urchins and the starfish that we also find in tide pools.
There are many tide pools like these along the Oregon coast, often near rocky headlands. The animal curators say you can touch most tide pool animals, but be gentle. And they say you should put back any animals you pick up, or replace any rocks you turn over. That way the animals will be there on your next visit to the pools.
The varied sea life that flourishes beyond these tide pools in that vast expanse of ocean out there is a mystery to most of us. Deep under those ocean waves lives a community of animals in an environment most of us will never get to see. When the waters off Oregon shores became rough this winter, staff members from the Oregon Coast Aquarium traveled to a place where similar forms of ocean life exist. They ended up in Washington State's Puget Sound.
Once submerged, animal curator Peter Noah and his crew from the Oregon Coast Aquarium hope to find a variety of sea animals in the murky waters of Puget Sound in Washington State. The Pacific Northwest is a relatively new area for divers because few want to brave the chilly waters here.
There's not a lot of divers because it is pretty rough, and it's not the Caribbean, Club Med kind of diving. It's tougher, more demanding. So what we get to see here is almost like new ground. It's just every time you turn around, there's something new. Wow, that's neat.
One of the animals divers find on this trip is a sunflower star, large, colorful, and known to be aggressive. The divers make a mental note of the animal's surroundings.
What was that animal munching on when we went to to pull him off the rock? Well, if that's what he's munching on, we make notes of that, and we're going to see if we can get some of that so he can munch on it just like he did out in the wild.
They also find a large frilled anemone, one of the most breathtaking they'd ever seen.
When you're collecting these animals, you have to be relatively careful because they're very fragile. They're just essentially big bags of water.
Diving underwater isn't the only means of specimen collection they use on this trip. Under a cover of darkness with the Seattle skyline in the distance, the crew uses a method called seining, where a large net is swept out in the water and brought back on shore. The animals caught inside are sorted quickly, and those not needed returned back to the sea.
You want to do things quickly. These are very, very sensitive animals. They have a very high oxygen demand. You have a certain amount of water in the bag. You want to make sure that they're up into an oxygenated holding tank with the minimal amount of stress.
Care is taken to separate the animals that aren't friendly to one another as they're moved from container to container. Immediate medical attention is also given to the most fragile animals during the transportation process until all have been safely moved.
I think the thing that is probably points out that we're doing a very reasonable job is that the animals that we have lost from the time that we've started till now have been almost zero. You have to expect that in any collection process you are going to have some mortalities. Our mortalities so far have been very, very, very low. It's been quite gratifying. It's the payoff to say that all that work that you did and lugging those bottles around, the oxygen bottles around that weigh 250 pounds was worth every second of it.
Back at the aquarium's holding tanks, small sharks called dogfish, young skates, sea pens, and the mossy-headed warbonnet are just some of the animals showing signs that they're already adapting to their new homes.
When an animal starts to eat, and there's been already a bunch of reproduction in some of the tanks. So if you're eating and reproducing, that's saying that life is okay.
A tour of the Oregon Coast Aquarium follows the journey a drop of water takes on its way to the sea. That path starts outdoors before you even enter the building, where a recreated uplands coast range forest grows lush with ferns, spruce, and other vegetation. A freshwater stream leads you to the plaza in front of the aquarium building. Inside the lobby, a school of replicated salmon positioned overhead guides you to the exhibits. Now this is the Sandy Shores Gallery, and it recreates a marine environment, including some of the animals that live there. In that center tall tank behind me are pier pilings. They're home to settling animals like anemones. In fact, throughout the aquarium, there are over 2,500 sea anemones.
You guys know what kind of shark that is there? That's a leopard shark. Why do you think they call him a leopard shark? He's got spots, exactly.
Make sure when you handle an animal that the palm of your hand is wet.
It looks like it's
Hand's wet.
This is the Rocky Shores Gallery, and it represents an area that you would find just offshore, where the animals hide and cling to the cracks and crevices in the rocks.
Can they move?
Yes, they can move. If you pay attention to your hands, you'll feel his tube feet crawling on your hands. You see his tube feet moving over there? Yeah.
Tickle.
It does tickle, doesn't it?
This is a wolf eel, and he's pretty difficult to spot because when he's not out hunting, he uses his camouflage body to hide back in the rocks. He uses his teeth and strong jaws to crush his food. These wolf eels might look fierce to you, but they're actually caring parents compared to many other fish. The female lays her eggs in a rocky cave, and both parents guard the eggs until they hatch. This is the Rocky Coastal Reef. Now, it represents a recreated reef area with some of the deeper ocean fishes you'd find there.
There's a fish in here called a spiny dogfish that is a type of shark, but wouldn't hurt you. That's the tiny, tiny one you see right here.
Hello, Mr. Dogfish.
This is a lion's mane jelly. This is a small one. This was collected off the coast about 2 weeks ago. These are very, very long tentacles that are laden with stinging cells. The animal uses those stinging cells to capture its prey. Basically, any appropriate food item that swims into these tentacles is drawn up into this center tissue, and that's where all the digestive organs are.
The white ones are called moon jellies, and the brown ones actually have a parasitic crab that sits inside. If you look real close at a couple of them, you'll see the tiny little crab in there.
This is actual seawater pumped in from nearby Yaquina Bay at the rate of about 2 million gallons every day. The water is stored and circulated throughout the aquarium, and eventually it goes back into the bay. Now, the folks at the aquarium tell me that this recycled water is even cleaner going out than coming in because of the system it goes through here. And this? Boy, it's a forest of kelp and the animals that hide in it. Now, you'll notice that the kelp keeps moving, and that's because a mechanism has been installed, causing it to wave in a rhythmic machine-generated surge. It's much like the movements that occur in coastal waters. Outside, it's hard to believe these rocks weren't always here. All of them were actually created by the same material used to make your swimming pools, namely gunite. Now, if the rocks look somehow familiar to you, it may be because the patterns for them actually came from the rocks in Devil's Punch Bowl. Now, that wasn't a real wave crashing in. Actually, there are 2 wave crash machines hidden above the pools in the rockwork, and about every minute they send 1,500 gallons of water per wave. And then once an hour they synchronize and send 3,000 gallons out, equivalent to about 2 Volkswagen Beetle loads of seawater. Now, the water is then recycled back through the system. This all helps make the marine environment for the animals in these tide pools more like what they're used to on the Oregon coast.
What are the purple things in the middle, you guys? Right down below you, what are those 2 round purple things? Do you know? Yeah.
This is Cody. He's a sea otter. He was rescued as a pup in Alaska after the disastrous 1989 oil spill from the Exxon Valdez.
These are the Alaskan sea otters, and they're feeding right now. We're doing about 6 feeds a day with the otters just to help them acclimate, just so that they get used to us, because they are quite used to people, being that they were pretty much hand-raised from the time that they were involved in the oil spill and then taken out of the wild.
Here in their new home, the otters have the equivalent of 1,380 bathtubs of seawater in their specially designed pool. They eat about 25% of their body weight per day, which is quite a bit, and their diet consists mostly of clams, crabs, and fish. Otters have made remarkable recovery in the last 80 years. They once were thought extinct, but now the California otter population is spreading slowly up and down the coast.
Oh, he's just great. We try to enrich their environment by giving them toys, quote unquote. Also ice. They love to play and chew on the ice and eat the ice. You might see some little PVC pipes in there for them to play with. They're very active.
Don't you wish you could swim?
This is the open-air walk-through aviary. What's special about it? It's the largest seabird aviary in North America. The birds that you see here, such as the rhinoceros auklets and the pigeon guillemots, are rarely exhibited in other zoos and aquariums.
Take a look underneath. You can look down underneath and see the bird's feet.
There will be 125 birds in this aviary by the time the aquarium opens to the public. These birds typically spend their lives at sea, returning to the rocky coast once a year to breed. They're clumsy flyers, but veteran divers. They can dive underwater to depths of 30 to 40 feet. It will take some 1,500 pounds of fish to feed these birds for a single month.
The birds in this habitat are tufted puffins, which are these, and then there's some common murres, the white and black birds with the long pointy beak. Now these animals are juveniles. They're only not even a year old yet. So you'll see, what you see here is juvenile plumage, just the dull gray, brown, blackish color. These particular birds were taken off of cliff sides in Alaska as just babies. They were downy, fluffy little babies, and then they raised them here at the aquarium. These animals you can see here on the coast. If you ever are up on Yaquina Head, the Muirs and puffins as well are out there nesting at this point, and there's thousands of them up on the rock.
Here we go. Look down
Back in there,
That's the octopus's face.
This is the giant Pacific octopus. It weighs about 60 pounds and has a 10-foot arm span. The octopus is actually quite shy and usually sleeps by day in a rocky den to hide from predators. Even though it's spineless, the octopus has quite a brain. In fact, its brain is similar to a vertebrate's. Studies of octopuses show they can remember, learn, and cope with new situations.
They can be trained to do different tasks. They can solve problems, figure out how to unscrew the lid off of a bottle or take a cork out to get at something that's inside of it. They're kind of escape artists. They like to climb out of their exhibits. And the way we keep this one in is the tank is lined around the top with AstroTurf. Octopus suction cups don't stick to AstroTurf, and so he can't grab hold of something and climb out.
Here is the home of the aquarium's harbor seals and sea lions. Harbor seals can be shy on land, but once in the water, their curiosity wins out. They often float upright, looking around with their big brown eyes. Harbor seals live along the Oregon coast all year.
Here at the aquarium, we feed them primarily a fish-based diet, which is what they would eat in the wild also. In our case, though, we feed them fish that have been caught by commercial fishermen and been fresh frozen and brought to us on pallet loads of boxes. They get things such as herring, capelin, smelt, and occasionally a squid or two to help round out their diet. How much they eat depends a little bit upon how old they are. Growing animals need a little bit more in their diet, and also what time of the year it is. Because these guys live in the water and have to generate heat to keep their bodies at a certain temperature. They are warm-blooded mammals. The colder the water is, the more we have to feed them.
These California sea lions are hard to ignore. You can often hear them bark while they rest on rocks, jetties, or floats. Once submerged, sea lions paddle slowly, their heads and backs just above the water. They can even body surf on waves or leap while swimming at high speeds. When the summer breeding season is over, male California sea lions migrate north. From late August to early June, you can find them along the Oregon coast. Coming up, we'll take you to a classroom where the school supplies come in the form of salt water, sea stars, and marine animals.
Hey, I want to ask you a very important question. Out of all of the things you've seen so far at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, what was your favorite?
Wolf eel.
Wolf eel.
Sea urchin.
Sea urchin.
Leopard shark.
Leopard shark.
Sea anemone.
Oh, a sea anemone.
Leopard shark.
Another leopard shark. How about you?
Leopard shark.
No, leopard shark I think is the favorite. Well, you might think you've seen everything that there is to see at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, but there's one very important thing that you haven't seen yet, and that's the Coast Aquarium's educational components. It's for kids just like all of us.
Each year, the aquarium will play host to some 15,000 school children from all over Oregon. The kids will get a chance to visit the facility, of course, but they'll also take part in some very special classes held right here at the aquarium. We received a sneak preview of what one of those classes would be like when it was being tested out in the field recently at a school here in Newport.
When I need you all to be quiet, I want you to raise your hand and say, sea star.
Sea star.
Okay, let's try it again. Talk a little bit. Gab, 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 gab. Sea star.
Sea star.
Oh, excellent. Very, very good.
These fourth graders at Yaquina View Elementary School in Newport are helping launch the aquarium's educational effort. Instructors Susan Haynes and Chris Reisbach are trying out a program that may be offered on site at the aquarium. Today's lesson is on tide pool animals.
We're going to be looking at these four animals and things that help them survive in their environment. Now, they live in a pretty tough environment. The sea anemone, the sea urchin, the sea star, and the barnacle all live along our rocky coast. Okay? So they need to be able to survive where the tide comes in and then the tide goes out. Okay? These animals up here are still alive. They've just got things that help them survive up here. Okay? Another thing that happens when the tide goes out, the sun beats down on them pretty hard, doesn't it? So they need to try not to dry out. They need to have ways not to dry out. Another thing that happens here is the waves on the rocky coast of Oregon are whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Is that kind of a tough environment to live in? You think you'd be able to hold on to these rocks and not get washed away?
If I was one of them.
If you were one of them, right. Okay, good.
After a brief orientation, the students get a close-up look at how these animals survive in their changing environment, an environment that shifts from taking them out of the water to plunging them under the sea. After all the children have finished the hands-on part of the program, the class regroups to recall what they've learned.
Does Barnacle sit on its head? Yeah, he sits on his head and holds on with his head, holds on to the rocks with his head, and feeds with his legs. Kind of weird, huh?
Since the staff is still testing its curriculum, part of today's session is set aside to get feedback on what the kids thought worked and what didn't.
On this, which ones are the barnacles? These or those?
Oh, good point. These are the barnacles. See how they're feeding their feathery 2 feet? Our artistry is not all that great. And these are a big bundle, a big bunch of blue mussels.
I wish the water wasn't so sticky.
You wish the water wasn't so sticky? Salt water is kind of sticky, isn't it? Yeah.
You should have had, like, more animals.
More animals?
Be rude, but more animals.
Having more time and being able to see more animals were the most common requests.
Well, how did you enjoy your first visit to the Oregon Coast Aquarium?
Awesome!
Good.
Awesome!
They call this place a place of wonder, and that's what it's about, to sensitize and educate us to this world around us. And with that, we'll leave you with the sights and sounds from your Oregon Coast Aquarium. Good night now.